Hello everyone, Az here. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about the History album. So the History album came out in 1995, obviously, and a whole month before the album came out, Michael dropped his debut single from the album, and that was Scream. Now, I wasn't aware that Michael was releasing an album in 95. I wasn't very much in the know, and obviously around that time there was no internet, and yeah, I was listening to other types of music as well, and I was hanging around with my friends, and I was yeah into all of that Britpop scene and all of that stuff that was going on in '95, and I was into sort of like other pop music and dance music as well, into a lot of things. So I was quite delighted and quite surprised when I walked into my local record shop and saw this on the shelf. So obviously I bought it and brought it home and listened to it, and was quite stunned when I heard Scream. Obviously the single is a double A side with the song Childhood, and if you just sort of look in there as well, it came with these pictures that would also feature on the booklet that came with the actual album, which would be released a month later. So this was released in May of '95, and then a whole month later in June, the album was released. So, I mean, my reaction to this when I initially heard it was I was quite taken back by it. The style was quite different from what Michael had previously released on Dangerous. This was quite funky, but it was sort of, I mean, at that time in '95, this almost felt maybe futuristic, maybe not now in hindsight. And, you know, it was such a long time ago. But back then, I was quite shocked and equally delighted by what Michael sort of gave us on the Scream song. And also, obviously, Michael swears on this, so that was absolutely fascinating to me that Michael Jackson would swear on a song. So this was awesome. This was absolutely awesome, and obviously it features Janet Jackson as well, and she was massive at the time. So to have both of them on a single was quite astonishing, really. Certainly for me. So that was released initially, as I said, in May '95, and then in June the album would follow. So the album, the album I bought initially on tape cassette. Now this isn't the original copy I bought on tape cassette. I went on then to sell my tape cassette and later on buy it on CD. But I absolutely loved the album on tape cassette because obviously you got your two cassettes, and it's designed in such a way that the CD size booklet fits in with the tape cassettes. But I loved the fact that you got both cassettes in this sort of style with the black border around the album artwork. I thought it really was presented beautifully. So obviously we get the CD booklet, and I mean this booklet itself could be a whole separate conversation. It's a really beautiful booklet filled with fantastic images of Michael, and it stunned me. It stunned me because up to this point on previous albums, well, I mean the '80s albums in particular. Thriller and Bad. There wasn't a whole lot of artwork. There was a fold out in the middle with a few images of Michael, but to get a booklet that was just filled with stunning images of Michael. So there's like things from the Dangerous tour, and then there's forewords and introductions from people like Steven Spielberg and Elizabeth Taylor, and there's dedications in here to Diana Ross and to a load of people, and it's just filled with really beautiful images. There's Michael in the Super Bowl performing Black or White. There's Michael popping up on the toaster for one of his Dangerous Tour concerts. And then, of course, the front image on the album is Michael standing statuesque on stage. That's what that image is taken from, obviously. And then on the back of the booklet, you have the reverse angle of that pose, but it's obviously live on stage. And it looks like these are candles, but these are pyrotechnics dropping behind Michael, sort of firework effects. So it's yeah, it's just filled with really fantastic images. And I mean, to get a greatest hits as well at this time, for me at least, it was stunning. It was absolutely stunning. And then hearing the new songs, hearing the sort of so on the one cassette you had the greatest hits. Well, I mean, they're not necessarily all of the greatest hits, but they are the songs I guess Michael felt fitted the theme of the History album. And I mean, there's plenty missing from this, but there's a lot of big hits here, obviously from Thriller, Bad, and Off the Wall. And then the only track on here actually from Dangerous is Heal the World. But I suppose that ties in with Michael's anthemic kind of theme, and sort of he will sort of then expand on that and sort of go more environmental on the single Earth Song on the History album itself with the new songs. So I mean, that was really, really, really beautiful to have it on cassette tape. So I had that probably for about a year before then I decided to kind of sell that and sort of move on to CDs. So then I got the CD, and then initially the CDs contained the track "What They Don't Care About Us," but "They Don't Care About Us" had some lyrics in it that I don't know, that there was a bit of noise made about, suggesting that Michael was anti-Semitic, and then those lyrics were sort of overdubbed with sound effects, and actually I think when I heard the versions with the sound effects, I kind of thought, well, why doesn't my album have the sound effect? And then I went out and sought a copy with the sound effects because I didn't actually realize the context behind why it was overdubbed with sound effects. But this one is a copy with the original lyrics, and I mean, I don't know if it was offensive. I kind of understand where Michael was coming from, but yeah, a little bit of controversy. But the same thing, I suppose, happened with Dangerous and the Panther Dance, and controversy around the short film for that. So every sort of Michael release from sort of Dangerous on would have its controversies. And I mean, even going back to Bad in '87, the controversy was his image and his sort of drastic change in his looks. But so that was that. And then probably about 5 years ago, I came across a single disc version of the new songs in a music shop. So I picked that up as well. So I mean, that's quite nice. I think this was initially sort of pressed in Spain or somewhere like that, and then this was just like I just found that sort of on import in a music shop. But you can buy this. This is readily available online as well, and it says here in the corner actually that it's History Special Edition. But I mean, it's not, the only thing special about it is, I guess, is it's just a single disc of new songs, and it comes in the cardboard slipcase, which is quite nice. But yeah, so this is probably arguably my favorite Michael Jackson album. I just think it's filled with songs that are absolutely stunning. And I watched a review recently on the album itself, and although the guy reviewing the album didn't necessarily like it all that much, he did concede that at the very least the album was fascinating. And I mean, that's probably about right for people who wouldn't be sort of who this wouldn't be their favorite album. It's fascinating. At the very least, it's absolutely fascinating. So Scream was the first single, and then in when was so You Were Not Alone. You Were Not Alone was released then in August of that same year, and You Were Not Alone was absolutely massive. This was massive. This debuted at number one in loads of countries, I believe. And this was huge. This was huge. I remember this song actually at the time when I was going to school. This brought a lot of new fans to Michael. Um, there was a lot of girls in my class actually loved this song, and even my younger brother, who would be a casual Michael fan, sort of got into the album through this song, and he was playing it quite a lot. So that was quite a surprise. So that was the "You Were Not Alone" single, and that was number one. And this actually beat the record of Scream. So Scream, I think, initially debuted at number five. I think it peaked at number five actually, and then this peaked at number one, sort of beating the record for highest debut at that point. And just getting back to Scream briefly, actually, the music video for Scream is phenomenal. It's one of Michael's absolutely greatest short films slash music video, and that holds the record, I think, to present time as being the most expensive music video ever made. I think it was $9 or $10 million that it cost to shoot that music video, and it's a beautiful short film slash music video. Janet's in it as well, obviously, and then obviously the aesthetic for it as well is black and white, which Michael would use sort of through the history era, not to any great extent, but there were two other music videos to follow that would be shot in black and white, and sort of just, I suppose, to give the era that sort of classic look and a little bit of consistency. And Scream was sorry, not Scream. Smile was to be the last single released, and I would imagine if Scream was released as a music video, which was supposed to feature Michael performing alongside Charlie Chaplin, that would have been black and white as well, just to sort of follow that sort of thematic classic look. So that were the first two singles, and then in Christmas of 1995, I was in one of my friend's house, having a little bit of a party, having a few drinks, and it was announced on Top of the Pops in the UK that the Christmas number one was to be Michael Jackson's Earth Song. And I mean, this was just phenomenal. This was phenomenal. This stayed at number one in the UK for 6 weeks. 6 weeks. And it's sort of, for me, this song and music video, short film, are everything sort of great about Michael Jackson and his wanting to sort of help the world and be sort of pro everything. And this was a phenomenal single. This was absolutely phenomenal, and I think the music video for this was just incredible, just incredible. I think this was shot in 4 or 5 different locations around the world, and I mean, it was massive. And this actually was Michael's biggest single, I think, in the UK. And I think this even beat Billie Jean as being Michael's most successful single released in the UK. So, I mean, that just sort of tells you how big this era was and the impact of this era. And Michael coming back after the allegations in 1993 and to sort of hit in this way was just next level, just next level. So that's Earth Song. So that was number one in November of '95, and it stayed number one for 6 weeks. And it was phenomenal single, absolutely phenomenal single. So then after that, we would go into 1996, and Michael would release "They Don't Care About Us." So "They Don't Care About Us" has two music videos, two short films, and the only one I was aware of for the longest time was the Brazil version, which is the version shot around Rio de Janeiro, in the back streets and alleyways of a part of Brazil. So to then later be made aware of another version of the music video, which I don't know if it was like a European version and an American version. I can't remember, or if the version shot sort of in prison with the prisoners was banned initially or wasn't allowed in certain territories. I can't really remember, but I mean, again, the song itself, just absolutely phenomenal, just absolutely phenomenal. It didn't go to number one in the US or the UK, but it did, I think, go to number one in Germany. So that's one of the CDs, and I think this was released. I think there's 2 or 3 different versions to this on CD, and this one features a lot of sort of like remixes and that was sort of the big thing in the 90s as well. Dance music was massive in Europe and in the UK and in a lot of territories. So featuring singles featuring a lot of sort of dance remixes, and I mean a lot of them would bear no comparison to the original song, but they just, I suppose, added something extra. And like there would be, so on this one also, this one actually also features the Beat It Moby submix, and I think that may have been had a little bit of sort of success in its own right in some clubs around Europe. But I think Moby was quite big at that time, or sort of was on the verge of being quite big. He was certainly sort of big as a sort of a remix kind of DJ, and I think then, well, I mean, I suppose he was always an artist in his own right, but he kind of emerged then from the mid 90s into more of a bigger sort of artist in his own right. So that was They Don't Care About Us. And yeah, I mean, that's a phenomenal short. I really like both short films of this. And the song in recent years has sort of taken on a second life, and kind of is sort of maybe bigger posthumously than it was initially in the 90s. And I think sort of it was adopted for Black Lives Matter. And it's, yeah, this song, yeah, it's an incredible song. And yeah, posthumously, nice to see that it just had such a massive impact. So after They Don't Care About Us in 96, then Michael released an absolute masterpiece, and that is the song Stranger in Moscow. So, Stranger in Moscow was released in November. This didn't chart very high. This was in sort of charted in number 90 or 91 in the USA, and I think it was top 10 in the UK, but it was number one in Spain and Italy. So it did hit number one, and it's a very simplistic music video. There's a beautiful sort of special effects, stop motion used. Again, the short film is shot in black and white to give it that sort of classic look, and the song itself is incredible. Stranger in Moscow. So this Michael wrote this with Brad Buxer in 1993 when he was in Moscow on his Dangerous tour, and when it sort of when the allegations hit, and Michael sort of felt completely alone, and that's sort of what this taps into. I think the genesis of the song was created by Brad Buxer, the music, the music to the song, and I think Brad Boxer played the music to Michael over the phone, and then Michael sort of wanted to work on the track immediately, and it's just an absolute masterpiece. Stranger in Moscow. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. So that's yeah, that's a really nice song. So also one of the sort of kind of oddities of the album itself with the new songs is that it features the song "Come Together," and of course, "Come Together" was something from the Bad era, and so "Come Together" had kind of three lives really. So it was released as part of the Moonwalker film in '88, and then it featured in '92 as the B-side on Remember the Time. So yeah, so Michael Jackson Remember the Time includes the previously unreleased Come Together from Moonwalker. So that's where it was sort of had its first initial official outing as the B-side on Remember the Time. And so then we sort of got it on the History album as a slightly edited down version of the song. And I mean, the only thing that's different is it's slightly shorter on the History album, and maybe it's just sort of mastered, obviously, for the History album. But I mean, there's a lot of different theories about why that features on the History album. I don't know if it's as sort of complicated as people sort of make out. One of the theories is that it's Michael's sort of nod to the fact that he bought the ATV catalog in the 80s, which includes the Beatles catalog, obviously, and that this album was sort of loaded with Michael sort of making a power play for his sort of stature in the music industry. So around the time of this era as well, when the album was released, Michael had a number of statues in different territories. And literally this statue. So Michael had one of these statues, or at least Sony, the record label, had the statue on a barge float down the River Thames in London. And I mean, that was quite controversial. But I mean, Michael, I suppose, wanted to come back bigger and stronger, and sort of proving to the world that he wasn't going to be sort of taken down by the allegations. And so yeah, another one of the theories I think about Come Together is the fact that Come Together sort of was inspired by a Chuck Berry song. I think Lennon lifted it directly from a Chuck Berry song. So a lot of people feel that it's more a nod to sort of Chuck Berry and to black musicians who were sort of done wrong in the past. And I mean, it could be all of those things, and it could be none of those things. It could be as simple as Michael simply loved the song and wanted to include it on the album. But I mean, it may be all of those things. But so yeah, so that's kind of the album itself. Also in '95, then there was this album released by Michael's three nephews, 3T, who were sons of Tito Jackson, and this sold around 3 million copies, and it featured the single "Why," and Michael appears in the single "Why," and Michael gave his nephews the song "Why," which was sort of a track that wasn't included on the History album. But I mean, the short film, well, music video, I suppose, is absolutely beautiful. It's like shot in a really nice sort of house in LA somewhere, and black and white, with Michael just sort of having fun with his three nephews around a swimming pool and a nice house. But Michael actually produced this album as well, and this was released on Michael's record label. So so this was quite nice as well. I think a lot of people aren't necessarily enamored with 3T, but I think this was just a quite nice addition to the era, and another addition to the era of which were many actually, because Michael appeared on a number of TV shows as well, more than he'd ever appeared. And he did a performance of Earth Song in the 1995 Music Awards in the UK, the Brit Awards. And that was quite controversial because Michael was accused of sort of posing as Jesus, which I suppose I can absolutely see that why people were sort of offended by it. And then of course there was the incident with Jarvis Cocker from the group Pulp would get up on stage and sort of wiggle his backside, and yeah, he was sort of got in trouble, and Michael I think was fuming over that, which is understandable, and it was a real punk move as well from Jarvis Cocker to do that, and I mean, Jarvis Cocker then sort of took the moral high ground. He was arrested after what he did, but then he took the moral high ground and kind of said, well, I was kind of thought what he was doing was vulgar and it was grossly offensive how he was posing and sort of like acting like some sort of savior. But I mean, when you really look at the footage, it really comes across that Jarvis Cocker was maybe just a little drunk and he just got up on stage and made a little bit of an idiot of himself. And whether you agree or disagree with the performance, that's fair enough. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. But what you don't do is you don't get up on stage and you don't interrupt somebody while they're performing. So I think one of the kids was hurt as well. I don't know. I don't know if that's accurate. But I mean, it is what it is. But Michael appeared as well on a German show, Wettendaz, and he performed on quite a lot of shows. He performed as well on the MTV Awards, and he done a medley of songs from the History album, and he performed some of the hits as well that appeared on the first disc, Billie Jean, Black or White, and then he performed a version of "You Were Not Alone," and I think he dedicated that to everybody who made that number one. And then he sort of performed one of the first public performances, I think, of the Dangerous live performance, which was really great, really great. And he done this whole like 15-minute segment on the awards show, and it was phenomenal. Lisa Marie was in the audience, Janet was in the audience, and it was a great performance. The performance also features Slash, and it was stunning. There's some great moves from Michael in that performance, and I'd highly recommend it. And that performance actually features on this, which is History on Film Volume 2. But before that was released in 95, I think it was in 1995, this one was released. So this is History on Film Volume 1. And this featured a mixture of sort of, so this one really, I suppose, kind of is sort of the visual representation for the disc one, for the hits on the album. And then this also includes the Brace Yourself, um, a kaleidoscope of Michael Jackson history, the Brace Yourself short, which was part of the intro on the Dangerous tour, and it features all of those sort of famous live shots and images of Michael on stage. And then the big fist hits the screen with Brace Yourself. And yeah, so this was quite nice to have this. And I mean, at this point, there were one or two sort of additions to this that we hadn't had on VHS prior. So it was kind of nice. It was nice to get that. But then in between both those VHSs of History on Film volumes 1 and 2, this was released, I believe. Now, I may be wrong, but I don't know if this was released in sort of in amongst these two releases, um, or actually looking at this now. So this was released in 97. So I'm actually after getting ahead of myself. And History on Film Volume 2. I don't. So this is also released in 97. So maybe this sort of came out just after this. I'm possibly wrong on that, but it was an era where just Michael was working harder than he ever had in his life, and he was really sort of out to prove a point and to sort of just come back firing on all cylinders. And it was just a mammoth era and campaign. And then, of course, alongside all of this, Michael as well was on his history tour, and Michael broke his previous record from the Bad tour. I don't think from the Dangerous tour, but he broke his record from the Bad tour of the amount of people who went to see him on tour. And that was a hugely successful tour, the history tour. That has its critics, that tour, for one or two reasons. But I quite like the history tour for what it is. And of course, that was when I got to see Michael on tour as well. So I went to see Michael in Dublin on the history tour, and it was phenomenal. It was absolutely phenomenal. And Michael Jackson, for the performance of Earth Song, when he went up on the cherry picker, he was right over my head. And his feet were like dangling just a few feet away from me. So it was incredible that I was that close to Michael Jackson. And I mean, it's one of my cherished memories from my life. Just the fact that I got to see Michael live was incredible. And in '97, then as well, a few weeks before I saw him in Dublin, Michael released his Blood on the Dance Floor album, and that tied in as well then with the Ghosts release. Actually, I believe that tied in with this, and this was released on a box set, which is somewhere behind me there. Which maybe I'll speak about that separately another day, and maybe we'll also have a look at the Blood on the Dance Floor album separately, and then also this is something that I was able to purchase probably about I don't know, maybe 10 or 15, maybe 15 years ago thereabouts. I purchased this on LP. Myself and my wife were lucky enough to be able to get this for a fairly decent price. And to have the history album on vinyl is really, I feel really sort of honored and lucky to be able to have it on vinyl, because it goes for an absolute bomb to buy this. But it is an absolute beast on vinyl. And obviously, I suppose, well, there's two big talking points about it. Is the inners are absolutely gorgeous. They're gorgeous. So you have that 95 history era Michael Jackson gold crest, um, as a pattern on the inners. And so it's a three vinyl set, and each one comes with those inners, which is absolutely beautiful. And then, of course, obviously, the other sort of big talking point about it is the booklet. So to have the beautiful booklet in full 12-inch vinyl size is just kind of sensational, and kind of really, really special. So that image actually, of Michael on his tiptoes from the 80s, that was an image that was used throughout the 80s, but then this became the image for the History Greatest Hits Volume 1 to be released separate. So the hits disc was released separately. I can't seem to find it. I have it somewhere on disc separately, but I can't seem to find it. I've sort of lost a number of stuff from moving recently. But I mean, there's the Elizabeth Taylor in introduction, sort of forward, and then it features, you know, stuff from, so Jackie Onassis, from Steven Spielberg, and Michael included these endorsements from sort of A-list Hollywood celebrities, I suppose, to just sort of reiterate the point that he literally was the king of pop. He was the greatest pop artist of all time, and why not remind the world, and why not come back in such a bombastic way just to remind everybody? Michael received sort of endless critiques and criticisms for various silly things during his life and career that other artists never received. So there was definitely a bias against him. So I think Michael was had every right to sort of come back in everybody's face, and just to sort of rub it into his various critics around the world. But I mean, obviously as well. So then this also features like sort of a list of all of the awards that Michael had won and received up to that point, and sort of different stuff. So there's Michael again, and I mean, just to have these images on this booklet is quite phenomenal. So there's an image here from the Bad Tour actually, and there's a banner there, and it says King of Pop, and that was superimposed onto this picture. Um, and I mean, Michael was the king of pop. Michael was the king of pop. If Elvis was the king of rock and roll, Michael Jackson was certainly the king of pop. And it could be argued that he was more than the king of pop, but I quite like the tag King of Pop. I think it's befitting, and I think Michael had every right to sort of have a precursor to his name, like many other artists did. The Beatles were the Fab Four. Michael Jackson was the King of Pop, and and I think it's undisputed at this point that nobody hit like Michael, and still in this day and age, in 2026, still nobody has thus far hit like Michael Jackson. So I think the guy had absolutely every right to I don't even think he proclaimed himself as the king of pop, really, but other artists certainly proclaimed themselves things, and nobody seemed to have a problem. But of course, with Michael, there was always the one or two sort of critics. So that's that. I mean, it's just a stunning a stunning booklet, and this is the era as well where sort of Michael used the image of him wearing the Berlin jacket, which was shot during the Dangerous era, and this was on a lot of the promotional stickers of the album. In fact, I think it was on my, I think that sticker, yeah. So it was certainly on the cassette version of the first pressings of the album. So that's that. It was an incredible era. It really was an incredible era, and it's arguably my favorite Michael Jackson album and one of my favorite eras. I think he absolutely cemented himself as an absolute unicorn within the music industry, and one of the true immortals of the music world. And I purchased this book probably about 4 or 5 years ago. This is a book written by a fan called Pez Jacks. Pez Jacks is the, is is the guy, I think, who does the Kingvention yearly thing that happens down in London, and he's done it, I think, in America now as well recently. But this book is absolutely brilliant, and I've got to give Pez Jacks props for this because it's a beautifully presented book, but it's just filled with info that I previously was unaware of, and it's really done well, and it's printed on high quality paper, and I learned quite a lot from this book, and I really, really enjoyed it, including the fact that Michael initially, or I don't know Michael, but maybe the record label wanted to change the Hollywood sign to history as part of the promotional campaign for the album. So this book, actually, I would really recommend it. Beautifully presented. It's filled with color, high res sort of color images of Michael during the era. There's sort of live performance stuff, and there's images as well from the whole thing. There's sort of the singles there from the era, and of course, this tied in as well with the Free Willy movie, which was the single for Childhood. So Childhood sort of tied in as the single. Was it for Free Willy too? And then Will You Be There was for the first part, for part one of that film. And the book also comes with that really beautiful bookmark that I've just realized now and just sort of spotted in the back of it. So yeah, so that comes highly recommended. And yeah, it's just a wonderful book, and it just sort of reminds one, and it reiterates how great of an era it actually was. And the album itself was stunning. The tour was amazing. um Michael wasn't at his healthiest during the live performances, but he still went out and promoted the album. And as well as going on stage and performing, he also visited more hospitals and orphanages and schools for underprivileged children that he ever did in his life. So he just was everywhere during this era. So with tour, album, Blood on the Dance Floor, the singles campaign, the TV performances. It was a phenomenal era, and yeah, certainly one worth revisiting. So thank you guys, thank you for that. I'll leave it at that, and I'll get back maybe to my scrapbooks again. My previous video was on some of my scrapbooks, and I'm still sort of looking at on how I present those videos. There's a lot from those scrapbooks that I sort of skipped over because I wanted to try and sort of represent as much of the bad era as I possibly could. But looking through those scrapbooks, there's some really, really incredible stuff worth revisiting. So I may have to represent that video in a slightly different format, and just go through the scrapbooks and the archives page by page. And yeah, so that's probably coming at some point. And yeah, thank you everybody. Hope everybody's good. If you like the video, I'd appreciate a thumbs up. I'd appreciate a subscribe, and I'll see you guys on my next one. Thank you.